So I just got back home. I'm doing a laundry day in my studio on my period, just going through the feels. But I want to get better at just keeping it raw, just hopping on here when I'm in the moment and not doing so many planned videos. So I'm gonna ground down here for a second and probably just sit down on the ground. All right, got our situation. So got back from what felt like a really intense couples retreat just with me and my man. And it was kind of just with the intention of like, I had a few days off. It's really the first few days off that I took time to really slow down this year, which is crazy because it's already July. But basically, the company I work with, I started working with them full time in February, and before I was contracted with them, so there was still a lot going on. But once I started full time, I also moved into the studio around at the same time. So there's a lot of transitions going on. And I intentionally put a lot of things on pause, which includes creating content, planning for my own retreats and events, and just so many things because I was like, I haven't worked full time in a while. I want to give myself a pause. I did do a really cool trip out in Texas back in April, and that was for a regenerative conference focused on meat and soil and all of the things that I'm so passionate about, and it's the industry that I work in. But that trip honestly felt like, and I did go to that trip with my man as well, because we are kind of like in the same industry and doing a lot of similar things, but different kind of like departments, if you will. But that trip felt like there was a whole itinerary. Like we were waking up early, there was a time difference, so it felt like we were waking up extra early. We wanted to, try out all the Texas foodie things, but we were also really there for a conference and to learn and sponge it all up. And it was a great trip. But this trip was an impromptu trip up the coast, just a road trip up to Santa Barbara. And currently we're in San Diego. So we stopped by, stayed actually in Ventura area, but then visited Carpinteria and Santa Barbara. But I gave myself actually a decent few days, and we only actually left like 2 days after the fact because we were just flowing hard. And actually, initially, we were gonna camp, and I was about to get my period, and I was having so much resistance. And even the day of, we had everything packed in the car, and I was like, I'm just feeling so much resistance. My man was feeling so much resistance, and I've been really leaning into operating with my honest energy and also just flowing. And we kind of make a joke because my boyfriend is a Scorpio and water sign, just super into flow. I'm a Virgo, earth sign, and just really grounded, regimented, structured. And so I've just always been leaning into like, how can I stay grounded, but also just flow and be more fluid with my plans and more spontaneous, and thus leaning into my honest energy. And even like the day that we started this entire trip, we were like, let's start this trip as a staycation. So we ended up just going to his place and spending like the first night there. And the entire trip was so many, we call them deep talks, but so many challenging conversations and some very like inspiring, kind of like more fun conversations, but still deep conversations. And when I say deep talks or deep conversations, I'm saying like anything where you can't just like half-ass a conversation. Like you're fully committed, you're there. You're not even like really checking time because you're just allowing your thoughts to flow. And then because both people are investing their time and presence and sharing their thoughts equally in these deep talks, we are both taking time to not only speak about the topics, but also hear the other person. And this has been such a big lesson for me, hearing the other person, specifically hearing the masculine and letting the masculine be heard. And this was a really beautiful thing in the course of this relationship that I'm in, that my man has brought to my attention, because he has had a background of where he really needed to speak up, being the youngest of several siblings. And we'd be talking and I had this pattern of interrupting him, and he'd be like, it's really important that you actually not just let me speak, but ask for my thoughts and really hear me. It's easy for us to get so passionate. We don't even mean to like talk over the other person or not give them space to talk, but we get so excited and passionate that we forget to pause and then allow the other person to be like, hey, what do you think? And this is really bringing both sides into the conversation and really making it like a collaborative experience. I feel like there's always jokes about couples like tuning each other out, and I'm like, dang, that's probably really what happens when they're not giving each other time to like pause. And so this is something that's been a huge part of my learning this year, but it not only is a learning in my relationship, I always tell my partner that he's really a portal for not only healing my relationship to myself and him and our union that we're creating and cultivating, but he's kind of a portal in me healing my relationship with all of the masculine. It's been so healing, but he is so honest, and so it helps me really like understand where the masculine's coming from. And so for him to speak up and really call me out basically on when I'm interrupting him has been like really humbling and important. But I know, at the very beginning I was kind of like offended and caught off guard, and I was like, what do you mean like you're it threw me off guard because most people probably don't speak up, especially men. So coming back to deep talks, it's really that idea that we're giving both of us a chance to speak, and we're just fully committed, and we're letting go of the time and almost like, detaching from any plans. Like even within the plans, we had so many things we wanted to do. And then we realized like, is this trip really meant to just check off the list? Or can we drop into like, even if we're just staying at our Airbnb and we're there for hours talking, like that in and of itself is part of the trip, and thus creating like a full retreat experience. So just to touch on a few things that we dove into, one of the topics has been really crazy. We've been diving into like, I think this goes along with boundaries, but it's going into like a lot of deeper stuff. But what do we feel comfortable with as far as like posting online? And so something that's been normalized lately has been like just women especially showing a lot of their body online. And I've had my waves and seasons where I've posted more, I've posted less, and I fluctuate with how I feel. Coming from the fitness industry, it's super normalized to post your body, but we've been having really honest conversations. My partner's been bringing up like how he feels about it, and then I bring up, what's coming up for me. And during these hard conversations, I notice what part of myself is trying to protect myself. Like my ego is trying to protect me. I don't want to lose a part of myself. I don't want to change the way and what I post because of someone. So I'm constantly having to check back with my truth. And similarly, maybe I'll have him come on here one day so he can share himself more personal things, but things that I've come up that maybe I have conflict with that he shares. And as we talk through it, I notice where I want to run away. I notice where I want to pull away. I notice all of my running away patterns, and to anchor down and just breathe through it and do all of the regulating stuff, it feels very intense. And I need to say, we started off the first day of this retreat or trip essentially watching this movie called The Sound of Freedom. And I hope if you see this that you go into theaters immediately and watch it. It was a really impactful movie, very, very tender. Like for my tender hearts, this is going to be an intense one. It's about child trafficking, but it's a beautifully made movie. And it has such an important message. So I want to address that. But that, like starting off day one with that, watching that movie brought up so much for me. And I actually felt heavy from it like 1 or 2 days after. And I'm not saying that to like scare you. It's just a really heavy topic. We always hear about it. And I think I might be like extra sensitive to these things. So that was already something intense going into already some challenges we were working through. And then, of course, traveling with someone and having to consistently sync up. For example, I'm used to taking like a lot more solo time, and I have to constantly navigate, am I taking solo time or am I wanting time kind of apart from my partner because I truly want to drop into solo space, or am I trying to avoid something? That's a constant kind of conversation I'm having with myself, something I need to consistently explore. And so spending several days together, doing everything together, being in one car, trying to sync up meals and everything, we're having to have this conversation. Another thing is like even creating and putting out content. I love doing it, but first and foremost, how am I prioritizing relationship or showing up for that? I think a big thing with all of this has been like really accepting relationship as not just a category in my life, but a lifestyle. It's really hard to do relationship when you're just like, I need to prioritize work right now. I need to prioritize relationship right now. I need to prioritize family right now. Like that, I've tried that for so many years, and I'm coming to realize like that's not how it works. Relationship is a way of life. I always come back to like Ram Dass's lecture on how one form of yoga, one of the most challenging forms of yoga, is actually relationship. So when you view your relationship as kind of your spiritual practice, it's not just one category of your life. You're constantly navigating work, family, your solo time, your likes, the way you eat, all of these things with relationship. Like relationship is submerged into all of it, especially if you're like really wanting to build a life with someone, but also wanting to grow and evolve with them. And so this trip was so impactful. I feel like I'm still integrating, like literally just got back to my home today. And it's been really intense and great challenges. And I think the final thought I'll leave this video off of is that life has become so much more beautiful ever since I stopped judging myself for relationship challenges. Like my traumatized self and my self that wants to run away and protect myself views every relationship challenge as like, oh shit, is it the end? And it sounds probably really extreme, but it's kind of true. And really, instead of viewing every challenge like that, being fully present and being like, no, I'm showing up for this. I'm here. I'm now in the present moment. And these hard moments are just as beautiful as the really happy, blissful moments. Like this is the part of being in this and living life. You know, the problem is like, it's not the actual challenge, it's that we want it to be easy, but it's not. We can accept that things can be hard, and the second we accept that, then it's like they're still freaking hard, but we don't judge those moments. We don't judge ourselves. We don't judge the relationship for being like bad. Rather, we are accepting that like a relationship takes this type of effort, and it can still be really beautiful, and it still makes so many beautiful moments worth it. But I think everything that really matters to us and means a lot, it takes effort, and it takes diving into those challenges. And the more I welcome those challenges, the more beautiful and the more I'm able to really like dive into relationship with deep curiosity. You know, I've been in so many back-to-back relationships ever since I was 18. I'm 26 now. And I was like, I've been in relationships. I have the experience. I have it all figured out. But I noticed I have this pattern of like a year and a half comes and I'm just dipping out. I'm feeling like running away. I wasn't ever there to really show up for the tough conversations. And it's so wild to be in a relationship where I'm like showing up more than I ever have, but I still see how much more I could show up. I still see the potential. And so that was my trip. It was essentially a couples retreat, just me and my partner, and we just dove into it, and it felt really challenging to slow down. I feel like work and the rhythm and pace that we're in our day-to-day lives is a way that actually pulls us out of the deep work or the presence with our partner. We always say we dream of a vacation with the people we love and we want to be with, and then we actually like come to it and it's not so easy. And so I just have so much gratitude for this past trip and just diving into the challenges. And I hope you're able to welcome all the sticky stuff, because they are actually just as beautiful as all the really beautiful, blissful moments, which we had as well.